The Great Pyramid. One of the most studied ancient riddles on Earth.
There were tens of thousands of people here building the pyramids. Where's their settlement?
6 million tons of stone, shaped and transported over 30 years, to build an eternal tomb with a sacred purpose.
Beneath the Great Pyramid, AI sensors uncovered a massive hidden chamber sealed for ages in absolute silence.
Inside the Great Pyramid are a number of fascinating chambers and corridors. Wow.
What began as a routine geological scan turned nightmarish when the system detected rhythmic pulses echoing through solid rock, like something buried, waiting, and still alive.
If we dismiss the tomb theory and we look at the pyramid itself, we see something that modern engineers can really tune into and understand.
Could these artifacts be actual evidence that electricity once coursed through the structure?
Experts struggled to explain what's inside or why ancient builders entombed it so completely. Whatever it has been watching the world from the dark beneath Giza. Heat signatures on the north face. The first scan began quietly. The team positioned their infrared cameras against the northern face of the Great Pyramid, the side believed to hide the original entrance. They expected to see the usual pattern of cool, even temperatures, a uniform gray image on their screens. Instead, 3 blocks near the lower center glowed an unnatural orange-red.
And that void exists right through this granite wall, at about this level of the pyramid, above the grand gallery leading to this chamber.
The readings showed a 6-degree difference from the surrounding stone. No sealed monument thousands of years old should still hold warmth. The group fell silent. If the numbers were right, something inside the pyramid was producing heat. The team was a mix of engineers, archaeologists, and data specialists who had been given rare permission to survey the structure without drilling or excavation.
He actually put reed through the cracks of the great beams, and it went into dead space, empty space.
Their tools could detect temperature shifts smaller than half a degree. The plan was simple: use thermal mapping to look for hidden spaces, trapped air, or cracks that could reveal new chambers. Nothing in their training prepared them for the result glowing on the monitor. They checked everything. The scanners were recalibrated, batteries were replaced, the equipment was tested on other sections of the monument. Every time, the same 3 blocks burned bright on the screen. Their location was aligned with the pyramid's true north axis to a precision that modern engineers still struggle to match.
This audacious engineering. And so for that, the Great Pyramid, although it's the classic pyramid in the popular imagination, is actually the most unusual. It's a huge anomaly.
That accuracy ruled out natural defects or recent tampering. The heat was real and centered exactly where the builders would have placed something important. When they compared the data to external temperatures, the picture became even stranger. The surrounding limestone acted as insulation, blocking solar heat during the night test. The warmth had to come from within. The computer model showed a symmetrical thermal pattern expanding behind the hot blocks, as if a hidden pocket of air or energy was trapped behind them. But how could air still circulate in a space sealed for more than 4,000 years? One engineer whispered the question no one wanted to ask. Could something inside still be generating energy? The team reviewed historical surveys and architectural plans, searching for records of repairs, breaches, or restorations that might explain it. There were none. The atmosphere at the camp shifted from curiosity to unease. What kind of design could trap heat for thousands of years without release? And if it wasn't heat from decay or sunlight, what was it?
We can think of the Great Pyramid as a colossal special effect, clad in white limestone, polished smooth. But for them, such special effects were not entertainment. For them, they were religious. They were magical.
The Great Pyramid was not supposed to breathe or move, yet the evidence suggested that something inside was still active, something carefully aligned. perfectly centered and somehow alive in its own mechanical way. The findings raised too many questions for one group to answer. Within weeks, the project expanded. A new team of geophysicists prepared to probe deeper, using particle detectors capable of seeing through solid stone. If the heat truly came from the core, they intended to find what was hidden there and why it had never cooled. The hidden pit beneath the pyramid. The second phase of the investigation began with a new team of physicists and archaeologists lowering their equipment into the pyramid's lower passages. Their tools were designed for deep imaging, a technology called muon tomography, a scientific method similar to an X-ray, but on a much larger scale. Muons are microscopic particles created when cosmic rays from space strike Earth's atmosphere. These particles can pass through thousands of feet of rock, allowing scientists to map structures without drilling. When enough data is collected, a computer compiles it into an image showing hidden spaces inside solid stone. For this project, the detectors were placed along the descending passage, a steep corridor that cuts through the pyramid's base and leads to the lowest known room, a rough underground space known as the subterranean chamber, or simply the pit.
When they actually penetrated this small door, they found a hidden room within the pyramid.
Unlike the smooth upper corridors, this chamber looked crude and unfinished. The floor was uneven, and the walls appeared to have been hacked directly from bedrock. To most archaeologists, it seemed like abandoned work. But when the detectors were switched on, the readings told a different story. The muon data revealed low-density pockets below the floor, suggesting that the pit wasn't the bottom of the structure at all. Beneath it were more gaps, voids or open spaces that no one had ever recorded. To verify the results, the team added sensors to measure temperature and humidity. Over several weeks, the instruments picked up a strange rhythm. The air inside the passage changed slightly every 12 hours, warming and cooling, becoming more and less humid in sync with magnetic fluctuations measured above ground. It was as if the environment deep inside the pyramid was somehow linked to Earth's magnetic field. The geophysicists recognized this pattern. They had seen it near fault zones where quartz-bearing rock is compressed under enormous pressure. Quartz has an unusual property called piezoelectricity, meaning it releases an electric charge when squeezed. The limestone bedrock beneath the Great Pyramid contains quartz veins. The team realized that the pyramid's immense weight pressing down on this quartz could generate weak electrical currents.
The Great Pyramid is itself a power generator.
The frequency of those pulses between 7 and 9 Hz matched Earth's own natural electromagnetic rhythm, known as the Schumann resonance. If that was true, the implications were unsettling. The Great Pyramid might sit on a natural electromagnetic hotspot, a place where the planet's energy gathers and remains stable. Did the ancient builders know this? Did they choose this exact spot because of it? And if they did, what were they trying to achieve? Were they trying to harness the energy, contain it, or stop it from spreading? While preparing new detectors at the far end of the pit, the excavation team made a discovery that stopped the work entirely. Wedged between two slabs of stone was a small blackened block, smooth on one side and scorched on the other. It was no ordinary rock. Portable scanners revealed magnetite mixed with traces of copper and silicon, which are materials not native to the pyramid. Magnetic readings showed that the particles inside were all aligned in the same direction, a sign that the object had once been exposed to an extremely strong magnetic field while still hot. It had been burned and magnetized at the same time. No known Egyptian tool or process could have created that effect. The scientists could only guess that the stone was once part of a system that carried or grounded high energy. The melted surface suggested a burst of electrical discharge had occurred here long ago, inside a chamber that was supposed to be dead and sealed. If the pyramid's base could still generate or respond to electromagnetic forces, then it was more than an ancient tomb. It was interacting with the planet itself. The finding forced the directors to widen the investigation once again. The next team, specialists in sound and vibration, would test whether the upper corridors were designed to move and regulate energy the same way. Whatever the pyramid's original purpose was, it clearly wasn't resting. The Grand Gallery. When the acoustic team entered the Grand Gallery for the first time, they immediately noticed how different it felt from the lower passages. The Grand Gallery is one of the few areas of the Great Pyramid still accessible by foot, a steep interior corridor that researchers and preservation crews can physically enter without excavation. The air was cooler, thinner, and the sound carried unnaturally far. Even a single step echoed from wall to wall. The chamber stretched 153 feet in length and almost 30 feet high, rising upward at a steep angle through the pyramid's heart. Along both sides, the walls stepped inward in 7 layers, and each layer contained small, evenly spaced recesses that looked too deliberate to be decorative. The team's objective was to discover whether these shapes affected the way sound and vibration behaved inside the pyramid. Technicians installed rows of acoustic sensors along the walls and floor, then released short, controlled bursts of sound. What they recorded was unlike anything they expected. The chamber responded to certain tones with precision, amplifying them into continuous vibrations that filled the air. The strongest frequencies ranged between 110 and 130 hertz, which is the same range produced by heavy industrial machinery or a deep musical note, felt more than heard. The vibration did not fade. It built into standing waves that reflected back and forth until the entire gallery seemed to hum as one body.
It must have made sense in a magical way, what we would call magic. There must have been spiritual power that made them take these choices.
Computer analysis later confirmed that each wave aligned perfectly with the wall recesses. This meant the Grand Gallery had been shaped to guide sound, not just contain it. When engineers compared the results with modern laboratory data, the numbers matched frequency ranges used to stabilize magnetic fields in cryogenic experiments. In those labs, small changes in sound vibration keep energy fields balanced and prevent collapse. No one suggested that the ancient builders used magnetic containment technology, but the mathematical similarity was impossible to ignore. The design was too deliberate to be chance. Someone had tuned this space the way an engineer tunes a resonant chamber. Then the tests revealed something far worse. During a long sound run, a technician working near the top of the gallery noticed a dark, irregular stain high on the ceiling. At first it looked like a shadow, but under the portable lights it became clear that the stone had been burned. The blackened patch measured about 2 feet across, and brittle fragments broke away when touched. Samples showed traces of carbon and sulfur fused into the surface, elements that only form together under extreme heat. The scorch mark sat exactly at the point where computer models showed the gallery's sound pressure was strongest. The team had no explanation. There was no evidence of fire or human activity that could have caused it. The lower corridors were clean and untouched, yet this single area had been scorched as if exposed to a focused burst of energy. One researcher asked quietly if the pyramid could have produced the heat itself, the way friction generates lightning inside a storm cloud. No one answered, but the thought stayed with everyone in the room. After months of testing, the data left little doubt. The Grand Gallery was not a simple hallway. It behaved as a resonant conduit, carrying vibration upward toward the king's chamber. The charred stone above them might be the physical memory of an ancient energy event, something powerful enough to burn limestone without flame. When the team combined their results with the previous Muon data, new anomalies appeared directly behind the granite walls of the king's chamber. The next group, specialists in materials science, was called in to study that section. Their job was to find out whether the granite room itself acted as a receiver for the forces traveling through the pyramid, and whether the heat that once scarred the ceiling was just the beginning of what the structure could do. The chamber that shouldn't be alive. When the materials and energy team entered the king's chamber, they were stepping into the most examined yet least understood space in the Great Pyramid.
We're in the king's chamber, more or less in the heart of the pyramid. Here is essentially this great granite-lined box.
The room was built entirely of pink granite, each block hauled from quarries hundreds of miles away. It measured roughly 34 feet long, 17 feet wide, and 19 feet high. Every surface was cut smooth, and the joints were so precise that even modern engineers struggled to explain how such accuracy was possible. Above the chamber were 5 hidden vaults, stacked one above another. These were called relieving chambers, and were believed to spread the pyramid's enormous weight. The team's mission was to find out if these layers were only structural or part of something far more complex. They began by attaching sensitive vibration sensors to the granite walls and floor. The devices could detect movement even smaller than a strand of hair. The data soon revealed something that none of them expected. The granite did not just vibrate, it reacted. Each block produced small, consistent electric pulses in response to the movement. The readings were clear. The chamber was generating electricity. The scientists knew that this was possible because of a property called piezoelectricity. Certain minerals, especially quartz, can produce electric charge when squeezed or vibrated. Granite contains a high amount of quartz, which explained the reaction.
But I'm going to look at quartz in particular, which is the first piezoelectric crystal to ever be discovered. This is what a giant quartz crystal looks like.
But the strength of the discharge was beyond anything the team had measured in other granite structures. When the chamber was exposed to sound frequencies coming from the Grand Gallery above, the energy readings spiked sharply. To test it further, the engineers played controlled sound waves into the chamber. When the tone matched the natural frequency of the gallery, the granite began to emit higher voltage levels. The king's chamber acted like a giant resonator, turning vibration into electrical potential, the way a microphone turns sound into a signal. The next step was to understand what happened to that energy. Using ground-penetrating radar, the team scanned the 5 vaults above the chamber. Each one appeared to trap and block electromagnetic fields, working together like layers of insulation. In modern terms, the structure resembled a multi-layer Faraday cage, a design used today to keep energy from escaping electronic devices. This meant that whatever energy the chamber produced was sealed inside. Attention then shifted to the granite coffer at the western end. It was a massive rectangular box carved from one piece of stone. There were no hieroglyphs, no carvings, and no signs of a burial. Measurements showed that its interior volume matched the frequency of the chamber itself. When the room vibrated, the coffer amplified the same tone. The chamber and the coffer were designed to work together. But for what purpose? Was this room built to store energy, or was it meant to hold something that required that energy to remain stable? By the end of their testing, the team was certain that the king's chamber was an active system that generated and contained power. When the data was shared with the Muon tomography team, new images revealed something no one had expected. Directly above the upper vault sat an unmapped cavity, a perfectly symmetrical hidden chamber completely sealed off from every known passage. After days of repeated measurements, the signal remained stable. There was no mistake. The Great Pyramid contained an internal chamber that no one had ever entered or seen. The discovery raised one question that no one could answer. If the king's chamber acted as the heart of the pyramid's energy system, what exactly was being kept inside the hidden space above it? The hidden chamber. To understand the structure's function, the team began studying how the void interacted with the pyramid's overall magnetic and acoustic profile. They installed external sensors across the north and west faces to measure fluctuations in the local electromagnetic field. To their surprise, the readings showed that the pyramid's field changed slightly every time the muon detectors were active. It was a small but measurable response. That suggested the cavity was not only physical, but reactive, meaning it could influence or reflect electromagnetic waves passing through the stone around it. Over several weeks, the team noticed that the cavity's density pattern appeared to shift slightly at regular intervals. The images became marginally brighter and dimmer, as if the space inside was absorbing and releasing energy in cycles.
And then it enters the chamber and collects the energy that has accumulated in that chamber.
The frequency of this fluctuation matched the natural magnetic rhythm of the Earth, which completes one oscillation roughly every 10 seconds. The possibility that the chamber interacted with the planet's field shocked the engineers. Nothing in known Egyptian engineering could explain such precision. To look deeper, they compared the void's alignment with the pyramid's internal geometry. The chamber was centered directly over the king's chamber, forming a perfect vertical line through the structure's core. Computer modeling showed that if sound waves traveled upward from the Grand Gallery, their highest energy point would concentrate exactly where the cavity began. The geometry indicated that the pyramid was designed to focus energy, vibrational or electromagnetic, toward that hidden chamber. While reviewing high-resolution laser scans of the walls below, a technician noticed something small but unsettling. In one corner of the Grand Gallery's upper ceiling, directly beneath the region where the hidden cavity had been detected, ran a faint diagonal fracture across several blocks. At first it looked harmless, but magnified imaging showed that the crack contained a thin layer of black residue. The team carefully collected microscopic surface samples from the exposed edge of the fracture. Laboratory tests confirmed that the residue contained carbon and metallic traces, the same combination found in areas previously scorched higher up the gallery. This suggested that heat or electrical discharge had once passed through this section, possibly traveling along the fault line toward the space now identified as the sealed cavity above. The engineers debated whether the crack formed from ancient construction stress or from an energy event within the structure. Either way, the evidence pointed to interaction between the upper void and the sections below. The once simple idea of an architectural chamber was no longer enough. The data implied that the void could be part of a functional system connecting multiple layers of the pyramid. What had begun as a search for hidden rooms was turning into an investigation of an engineered mechanism sealed inside the world's oldest monument: the copper doors and the signal that shouldn't exist. By the time the robotics team arrived, most of the pyramid had been scanned, mapped, or analyzed in some form.
When they actually penetrated this small door, they found a hidden room within the pyramid.
Only one section remained largely untouched: the two narrow shafts rising from the Queen's chamber. Each was only 8 inches wide, far too small for a person or standard instruments. Archaeologists had long argued about their purpose. Some said they were symbolic air channels. Others thought they were incomplete construction features. The new team believed they could connect to the hidden cavity discovered above the king's chamber. To find out, they built a flexible probe with a fiber optic camera that could slide through the ancient tunnels without damaging the stone. When the first probe entered the southern shaft, its light revealed a long, smooth passage stretching upward through solid limestone. The tunnel was too perfectly shaped to be accidental. After traveling nearly 200 feet, the camera came to a stop in front of a polished limestone block fitted with 2 small copper handles.
This robot traveled up this small shaft, which was too small for a human or any type of device to go through. And all of a sudden it finds a closed door, hinged by 2 little metal clamps.
It appeared to be a sealed door built deliberately at the end of a passage no human could ever reach. When the second probe explored the opposite shaft, it found another identical door at almost the same height. The symmetry was exact. Whatever purpose these served, they had been built as part of a very specific design. Before attempting to examine further, the engineers installed electromagnetic sensors in the Queen's chamber to monitor the surrounding field. The instruments began to detect a faint but steady pulse. It measured 7.8 Hertz, the same as the planet's natural background frequency known as the Schumann resonance. That value matched the low-level electrical rhythm produced by lightning and by the human brain during the first stages of sleep. It should not have been coming from inside a sealed ancient monument. To see what lay behind the doors, the team sent out a radar pulse from the probe. The signal bounced back stronger than it had gone in. The system behind the limestone block had reacted. In modern engineering, this type of behavior is known as a feedback response, which happens when a system automatically stabilizes itself after stimulation. The structure behind the copper doors was not absorbing energy. It was answering. Artificial intelligence software was then used to study the footage frame by frame. Image enhancement revealed faint red markings etched around the border of the block. They were not visible to the naked eye, but became clear under spectral analysis. Tests on minute dust particles collected from the tunnel showed iron oxide and traces of barium, elements that respond to magnetic activity. The shapes were geometric and precise, more like alignment markers than decoration. The more the engineers analyzed, the less sense the design made. If the shafts were simple ventilation channels, they would not end in copper-sealed doors. Copper is one of the best conductors of electricity known to science. Why would ancient builders use it deep inside a pyramid if it served no functional purpose? Was this part of a system that once carried or controlled energy throughout the structure? While the probes continued to record, something else happened. Each time the radar pulse was repeated at the same frequency as the background field, the video feed cut off for several seconds. When it returned, the copper handles on the door appeared to tremble slightly. No air or vibration could reach them at that depth. The movement could not be explained as mechanical interference. Either the image was being distorted by an electromagnetic surge, or the handles were truly moving. The engineers stopped the experiment. They could not risk damaging the equipment or whatever lay beyond the sealed block. The data was clear enough. The copper doors were reacting to electrical signals, and the source of that reaction was deeper than the known chambers. The team decided to expand the investigation once again. A new combined team of radar specialists and field physicists would scan the pyramid's foundation to trace the feedback to its origin. If the signals were coming from below, they might finally identify the unknown mechanism buried under the monument. And if it was still active after all this time, the world would have to ask why the ancient builders locked it away so completely. The hidden heart beneath it all. At this point, the project entered its most secretive and dangerous stage. After partial findings, feedback signals, and unexplained electromagnetic behavior, the directors authorized a new phase, a full synthetic aperture radar and deep vibration scan of the Giza Plateau. The team's goal was to trace the source of the signals that had been echoing upward through the pyramid structure. Dozens of radar arrays and magnetometers were placed around the base, capable of penetrating more than a mile below the surface. Within days, the new data revealed something the scientists were not prepared to see. Beneath the known subterranean chamber, about 30 meters down, the radar displayed a perfectly round shape roughly 9 meters wide. It was a complete sphere buried in solid rock. Its surface reflected radar differently from natural stone. Instead of scattering signals randomly, it sent them back in smooth, curved patterns that showed deliberate structure. The only material that behaves like this is engineered crystal used to control electromagnetic energy. It looked as if someone had built a hollow crystal sphere and sealed it deep under the Great Pyramid. When the magnetic sensors were activated, they detected a steady pulse repeating every 12 minutes. The signal was weak but extremely consistent. When converted to sound and slowed down, it resembled the rhythm of a human heartbeat. Software flagged it as biological, though no life could exist under those conditions. The team repeated the test with different instruments, but the result was identical. The pulse never stopped. To find out if the object was passive or active, the scientists applied a small electromagnetic field to the ground above it. The reaction was immediate. The pulse grew stronger, then returned to its original strength, as if the object had sensed the interference and balanced itself. That meant it was adaptive. It could respond to the environment. Whatever it was not an inert matter. Computer models using the new data produced a disturbing picture. The energy field surrounding the sphere aligned perfectly with the design of the pyramid above it. The King's Chamber and the Grand Gallery were located at the exact points where the field lines met. The geometry showed that the entire pyramid acted as a stabilizing shell, built to contain and balance the energy coming from the sphere. The Great Pyramid might not have been built to honor a king, but to seal and regulate something already present beneath it. Geologists then tested the layer of melted limestone surrounding the sphere. The stone had been fused under extreme heat, something only possible through a massive energy release. Dating confirmed it was over 25,000 years old, far older than Egypt's known civilization. The evidence proved that Khufu's builders had not created the object. They had found it, and instead of removing it, they had buried it under a structure strong enough to last for eternity. Inside the research camp, the mood changed from excitement to fear. What was this thing? And why had the ancient builders gone to such lengths to keep it sealed? Some researchers believed it was an ancient reactor designed to stabilize the planet's magnetic field. Others thought it was a containment vessel built to imprison something that once generated uncontrolled energy. The most disturbing idea came from the AI analysts. They noticed that the modulation of the pulse followed the same pattern as human brainwaves when a person is awake but calm. If the data was correct, the object might not just hold energy but information, or something resembling awareness. No one could agree on an explanation, but everyone agreed on one thing. If the object's field failed or was disturbed, the results could be catastrophic. The melted rock around it could be evidence of a past failure, an event that forced ancient builders to seal the site permanently. The pyramid's perfect alignment with the planet's magnetic north might have been designed to keep the field stable and prevent another disaster. During the final scan, every instrument across the site synchronized with the pulse. For 10 seconds, all sensors displayed the same frequency, then shut down. When power returned, the pulse had changed slightly, as if it had detected their presence and adjusted. The team ended the experiment immediately. The final report described the discovery as a bioelectromagnetic mechanism of unknown origin and warned against any attempt to excavate it. International authorities agreed to stop all further exploration. The sensors remain in place but switched off, yet the underground readings continue to show the same slow 12-minute heartbeat. No one knows what it truly is, a power source, a containment device, or a prison for something far more dangerous. The only thing that is certain is that it is still active, still responding, and still waiting in the dark beneath the Great Pyramid. What do you think the device truly is? Comment down below. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one.